appointed Culture Minister Gabar Ashfor has quit. His family say it's due to health reasons. But Egypt's mainly daily newspaper Al Ashram says Ashfor, who's also a writer, was criticised by his colleagues for taking the post. He was the only new face in the new cabinet. Reports from India suggest the country has formally agreed to resume peace talks with Pakistan. Dialogue was broken off after the 2008 Mumbai attacks, which India blames on Pakistan-based fighters. Pakistan won't confirm the move, but says things have moved forward. The Philippines government has resumed peace talks with Muslim separatists. The decades-long conflict in the country's south has pitted government forces against the Moro Islamic Liberation Front. Talks between the North and South Korean militaries have broken down. Neither side could agree on an agenda for future discussions. Tension has been high on the peninsula since the North shelled a South Korean island in November, killing 4 people. Italian prosecutors are demanding Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi go on trial immediately. The call follows allegations that he paid for sex with a 17-year-old Moroccan dancer and then used his political power to cover it up. US President Barack Obama is gearing up for a battle as he gets ready to present his budget to Congress next week. Republicans have vowed to slash more than 60 government programs. The trial of Abu Bakr Bashir, the spiritual leader of the al-Qaeda-linked Jamia Islamiyah network, has been postponed until Monday. Bashir was due in court on Thursday to face terrorism charges. The 72-year-old has already served time for conspiracy over the 2002 Bali bombings. If convicted, he could face the death penalty. Those are the news headlines. More news at the top of the hour next. A Nation in Waiting.
By 1999, a time for new beginnings was approaching. A new century and a new term for President Mubarak. He had already ruled Egypt for 18 years. And throughout this time, life had been moving slowly for its people, reflecting the gentle flow of the Nile. But the mood of Egyptians was now very different to the one that had welcomed Mubarak's assumption of the presidency in 1981. With a world of free media opening up in front of them, they were finding a new, more effective release for their frustrations.
The world is changing. We are changing. Our genes are changing. Media played an important role in this. Satellite TV, the internet, the mobile phone. Life isn't the same as it used to be. You can't keep things quiet now.
Satellite channels like Al Jazeera, which was founded in 1996, were challenging traditional media in the Arab world. Governments could no longer control what people were seeing or hearing. During a trip to Qatar in 2000, Mubarak asked to visit Al Jazeera. Shocked by the small size of the operation, Mubarak said sarcastically, "All this noise from this little matchbox?" After decades of no alternative but watching government-controlled media, Egyptians were being exposed to new perspectives on the world.
We had the media revolution. No regime could stop this kind of development. What's more, governments could no longer hide the mistakes or crimes they committed.
The printed press was also changing its form. An increasing number of newspapers were published by a younger generation, hungry for change and openly rejecting the old political status quo. The government allowed its critics some space during this period. Yet whenever objections were raised regarding freedom of speech, the authorities stressed that Egypt's record compared favorably to neighboring Arab countries. But some had higher aspirations.
Why compare Egypt to Syria? Why not compare it to Sweden? Or is Egypt not worthy? Or Greece? Or is Egypt not worthy? And I'm demanding all my freedoms, not just some of them. So when I ask for my rights, don't ignore me or tell me you've got bigger problems to deal with, like people starving. So what do you want me to do to get your attention? Starve?
Journalists kept pushing the boundaries to such an extent that criticizing the president became routine, even though under the emergency laws, such criticism could result in imprisonment. Undeterred by this prospect, Abdul Halim Qandil published a collection of his most controversial articles in a book entitled Against the President.
Criticizing the president is forbidden. The president is in charge of everything. He's the head of the military, judiciary, and the police. He hires everyone from the prime minister to the lowest government official, and he has the right to have them fired. The president is everything in Egypt. He can dissolve parliament and issue rules backed by law. To be fair, if all these powers are in the hands of the president, then we must be able to criticize him.
Literary figures joined journalists in their increasing outspokenness. Ala al-Aswani, both a dentist and a novelist, had become disillusioned with life in Mubarak's Egypt and was planning to emigrate. But first, as a farewell to his homeland, he wrote a novel focusing on a Cairo apartment block called the Yaqubian Building. Through its fictional inhabitants, al-Aswani produced a scathing critique of his country. The book may have been a work of fiction, but the author stood accused by many of defaming both individuals and Egyptian society as a whole.
This happened with many great authors in the world like Balzac and Dostoevsky, who wrote about the negative aspects of their countries. But you can't then accuse them of tarnishing the image of their country. An author doesn't try to encourage tourism. Literature is supposed to show you the bad side of the good and the good side of the bad.
The novel was a huge success, and following unprecedented sales throughout the Middle East, a big-budget feature film was produced, ensuring that the story reached an even wider audience.
نكمل كلامنا لما نطلع فوق الناس بتبص علينا.
يبصوا علينا ليه؟ يبصوا على البلد اللي باظت. يبصوا على العمارات اللي كانت أحسن من عمارات أوروبا. دلوقتي بقت مسابل من فوق ومن تحت مسخ. إحنا في زمن المسخ.
Literature is about trying to make the reader believe that the story really happened. When your character is close to someone in society, people think it was intentional. For an author, this is considered success, but it caused me problems.
أنا استخرت المولى عز وجل وقلت أرشح نفسي في مجلس الشعب عن دايرة قصر النيل.
قصر النيل؟
أهلي وناسي.
أنت عارف إحنا مسمين دايرة قصر النيل في المجلس إيه يا حاج؟ حتة الجاتوه.
The issue of corruption raised by the novel rang especially true for many Egyptians. The sight of wealthy men joining Mubarak's ruling party, then becoming members of parliament and even rising to ministerial positions, started to become familiar to the Egyptian public. Some argue that such businessmen are perpetuating the very inequalities that have plagued Egyptian society for centuries.
When there's a businessman or a capitalist in a direct governing position, he not only knows the market situation before others, he creates market situations. He makes decisions that affect the market, and his companies make use of this knowledge. This happened with some ministers, even if they overtly resigned from the boards of their corporations.
But Ibrahim Kamel, a businessman and member of the ruling National Democratic Party, doesn't see any conflict of interest in this scenario.
I don't believe that businessmen entering ministries is wrong in itself. If someone's extremely successful in his own field, then there's a chance that he'll also be successful as a minister. And who else should be ministers? University professors? Why would a university professor be any better at taking decisions than a businessman?
Or, for that matter, than a president's son. In 2002, President Mubarak's youngest son, Jamal, was appointed General Secretary of the NDP's Political Bureau, the third most powerful position in the party. Many suspected he was being groomed to become the next president, establishing a Mubarak political dynasty. However, party members insist his appointment was made purely on merit.
For anyone who's close enough to know, the addition that Jamal Mubarak made to the National Democratic Party has been good. The only problem is that this young man is called Jamal Mubarak, so everyone uses their imagination and links this to ideas of inheritance. I wish we would discuss what he has done, what he's doing, and what he can do. But to be suspicious of him just because of his name, no, it's not fair at all.
But fair or not, Jamal Mubarak's influential position in the party was seen by many as a perfect illustration of the inequalities in Egyptian society, in which power is concentrated in the hands of the privileged few. And as the gap between the haves and the have-nots widened, it seemed that two nations were living side by side in Egypt. A majority which could only afford the bare necessities, and a minority living in the lap of luxury. The historic pact Egyptians had made with the government to stay politically inactive in return for economic and social stability was starting to weaken.
The Egyptian revolts when he faces economic problems. Politics don't matter to him much. If you talk to a citizen about elections, freedoms, or democracy, he won't be that interested. But if you start talking to him about increasing prices, rent, or poverty, that's when he will concentrate and start getting angry.
The Kifaya movement, created in 2004 by a group of intellectuals, took to the streets to say enough to Mubarak's presidency and no to the idea of inherited political power. Pressure was also growing from the outside. The Bush administration was causing friction in the previously smooth relationship between Egypt and the United States. Washington was calling for so-called democracy in the Middle East, including Egypt.
President Mubarak's relationship with former American presidents has generally been very good. The only president that he wasn't able to coexist with, or who he didn't have chemistry with, was in fact President George Bush Jr.
Mubarak was feeling the pressure from all sides, unable to ignore the demands of both